Continuing with the heat series, today we'll take a look at healing using the heat model. We started off our discussions first with the model of the mind, and we took a look at the concepts of different schools in psychoanalysis, and we discussed the idea of a full school, three-quarter school, half school, and a quarter school. We then took up the model of heat as a full school. In the second session, we took a look at models of the mind and the heat model of the mind. Third session, we took a look at pathogenesis in the context of heat model. And today we'll take a look at healing in the context of heat model. And after this, we'll try to apply heat model to a specific disorder, probably bipolar disorder I will take up. And then we can go on to application of heat to different chapters of DSM, different disorders, and come up with a package for each disorder in the light of heat. This ultimate goal of having the package for each disorder, which is holistic in the light of heat, is the natural, obvious end product of our discussion. So let us start our discussion today on healing in the light of heat. When we come to healing, we have 5 broad approaches to healing. The first is the classical psychoanalytic approach to healing. Then we have a slightly broader Western psychotherapy approach to healing, which includes both psychoanalytic and non-psychoanalytic approaches, which includes CBT, DBT, existential psychotherapy, logopsychotherapy, psychodrama. So from classical psychoanalytic approach to healing, we widen our basket to arrive at Western psychotherapy approach to healing, the classical academic Western psychotherapy approach. And then we have holistic healing, which includes Reiki, pranic healing, Tai Chi, which have been accepted by WHO as good complementing therapies. Not substitute, but definitely complementing. You also include homeopathy there. This broadens our basket of healing, the tools and techniques we have even more. And then we have the approach of Eastern spirituality, which goes into idol therapy, meditation, visualization, use of mantra, relating to the guru, relating to beings who do not exist physically, mystical practices, certain substances to be taken, herbal substances to be taken, a very wide area of Eastern spirituality. And then we have the heat approach, which tries to combine the above four and add on to them some innovative approaches to engage with elementals involved in pathology. So these are the five approaches to healing. We will focus on the heat approach. So what we will do is, in this presentation, in this discussion, I will first go into what is included in heat if we try to combine all the four and add to the collection. So the next slide I will go into what are the tools and techniques and approaches available in heat for healing. And thereafter, I will take up 5 psychoanalytic phenomena very fundamental to pathology and healing. And for those 5 phenomena, we will go into details of the phenomena, how you would heal them in a classical approach, and how you would heal them using heat approach. What additional can you do in the heat approach? Of course, all that is included above is also included in heat. So it is an integrating approach, it's not a substitute approach. So we will take a look at 5 very important psychoanalytic phenomena. The phenomena of split, the phenomena of ego cohesion, the phenomena of I am not good enough, the phenomena of the world is not a safe place, and one more, Oedipus. So we'll take a look at these 5 very important psychoanalytic phenomena, the phenomena of Oedipus, split, ego cohesion, I am not good enough, and dream analysis. So we will take up this, not dream analysis, what I have taken up, split, ego cohesion, Oedipus, I am not good enough, the world is not a safe place, safety. So we'll take up 5 phenomena today. In subsequent lectures, we will take up other phenomena from psychoanalysis, pathological phenomena, and see how we go about in the classical approach trying to heal it and what additional things we can do under it. So let us start first with what are the elements that heat tries to combine. So what heat tries to combine for healing, you can group them under 3 broad categories. Approaches which are coming from Western psychotherapy, approaches which are coming from holistic healing, and approaches which are coming from Indian spirituality or Eastern spirituality. And heat tries to combo all of them and innovate more to add to them. So let us look at what are the tools and techniques we have. In the classical Western psychotherapy healing, we have the cognitive approaches, either practiced independently as cognitive therapy or in combination with behavior in CBT, either without a sense of purpose in an agnostic way in CBT, REBT, or in a purposeful way in logotherapy. So there are schools and approaches based upon cognition, schools and approaches based upon affect, which can involve psychoanalysis, ISTDP, EDT, emotion-centered therapy, emotion-centered workshops, purpose-oriented schools like logotherapy or existential approach to healing, Philosophy oriented schools like humanistic, existential philosophy, psychodrama. These are some of the broad approaches. I should add here behavioral therapy. Forgot here. Behavioral therapy. So these are the broad approaches in the Western psychotherapy area. We can choose any of them or a combination of them in HEAT. And then we have the second voluminous category of holistic healing. We have the approach of Ayurveda using herbal elements as well as some cognitive exercises in Ayurveda, which try to increase the sattva, reduce the rajas and tamas, which are very allied to CBT in some ways. So there is an Ayurvedic approach to mental health. There is a homeopathy approach. There is an energy approach which involves pranic healing, Reiki, crystal healing, acupressure, acupuncture, Burma therapy. You have hypnotherapy healing, holotropic healing created by Stanislav Graf, and Om meditation or meditation similar to Om. Om is offered by Human University. Or you have yoga, martial arts, Tai Chi, Eastern martial arts, essentially an entire line based on body and breath work, body, intention and breath, but which involves body to a large extent. Hatha yoga would be a very good example here. Forgot to mention Hatha yoga. So these are approaches available to us for dealing with psychopathology from holistic healing approach. And then we have spiritual healing approaches which involve idol therapy, which is an extensive therapy by itself, very deep, which involves very deep psychoanalysis, yet to be fully appreciated and used. Meditative techniques, both individual meditative techniques, group meditative techniques, active meditative techniques and passive meditative techniques. Meditative techniques which involve mantra and visualization or just pure observational techniques. Different kinds of meditations exist. Then the use of mantra, visualization and prayer. Spiritual practices, and this is a world by itself, from devotion to good deeds to yagna to mantra and taking up a particular school to elemental purification, Bhut Shuddhi as it is called in Sanskrit, which is very relevant to heat because it's an elemental approach essentially. Then this is something which is like a blasphemy in the modern scientific context, engaging with secret forces, beings and masters for healing. Those who don't believe can leave this apart. They might feel it's going back to the dark ages. So if you feel it that way, leave apart this part. But if you believe in this or you have practiced Reiki or pranic healing, it becomes easier to believe in this and you see the utility of it. That it's not just a belief, it actually works. And reality might be stranger than we believe it. And then we can go into deeper spiritual practices where somebody takes up a school which offers up one complete package of self-knowing and self-transformation in its own subjective metaphorical way. One example would be Sri Vidya, one particular school for going deep into for self-knowing and self-transformation. So in HEAT, we do a mix and match of all of this, and where necessary we innovate. The idea is simple, we should get results. And for each individual, we can evolve an individual plan based on personality, pathology, and intensity. Let us start with our first important psychoanalytic concept, the concept of a split. And let us look at 11 instances of the split, 11 different manifestations of split. First, split is not open enough in childhood, and that continues in the adult stage. And what does that lead to? There is half knowledge about split, that the split has to open in the childhood and again be bridged into a depressive position. And the usual understanding is the closing of the split is healthy and the opening of the split is unhealthy. This essentially is half knowledge. In childhood, the split has to open and then close. If it has never opened up adequately, there is a different set of problems. If the split has never opened up adequately, there is confusion. You cannot differentiate between the good and the not good. The cognitive continuum of good and bad, white and black, that cognitive capability to really go to two ends of the continuum is not developed. Once you go there, we have to develop the next capability of coming into the optimum zone in between. That's the second thing. But not being able to conceive of the binary opposites is a problem. Extreme thinking is the beginning of synthetic thinking. If you cannot do extreme thinking to start with, it's very difficult to do synthetic thinking. So if the split is not open enough, it leads to confusion even in the adult stage. What is the way out in terms of healing? Cognitive exercises which can help you to open up the split, and affective exercises which can help you to open up the split and feel at both ends of the split and feel as you join the split. So that is how classically we would deal with it. We would show the person the inadequate opening of the split. We would help him to think in the extremes and then bridge it both cognitively and affectively. Second manifestation of split, the split opens and closes very rapidly. There are fluctuations. So the split opens, you go to either extreme and then the split closes. The split opens again, you go to the second extreme and the split closes. So this is what leads to perplexity. We are not able to make out what is how good, how bad, because the split is opening and closing very rapidly. So the time duration of the split being open and the split being closed and stability in both the positions is also very important. This also is something very few people realize. As I said about the split, much of what goes about in psychoanalysis, even in the Kleinian circles, is essentially half knowledge. This leads to perplexity. You keep switching from one opinion to the other about anything. So stability exercises, both cognitive and affective, and pointing it out in therapy, working on it in therapy, those are the ways out. Split open, not closing. This is the classical example of the Kleinian split. This is how Klein explains it. This is what most people understand. The split open, not closing. Obviously, it's a pathological situation, and the We have anxiety on one hand and ecstasy on the other. And one of the very important elements is how to give up that ecstasy. Anxiety, everybody wants to give up. Few people realize that most of us are not ready to give up ecstasy and omnipotence, and therefore the split does not close. Split may not close at some times because of envy. It may also not close at times because one feels if one closes the split and becomes all right, one may be far better than everyone around. That may create a difference and one may lose objects around you. So there are many reasons why the split will not close. I think that reason I have not taken up here. The fear of loss of objects if one closes the split. Yeah, I have not taken up that reason. So there are many reasons apart from this 11. The 11 major reasons I have taken up. Split close too tight, not opening enough. Cognitive exercises are necessary because here you cannot work in art, you cannot work in creativity, you cannot do extreme thinking where extreme thinking is necessary. Somebody on the other side is on the extreme thinking, but you are not able to read his mind. Situation can go to catastrophic levels, but you are not able to imagine and prepare for it. Because the split is closed too tight, you are actually entangled in a depressive position. So these are the difficulties of being entangled in a depressive position. It is half knowledge that depressive position is all good. There are difficulties of the depressive position also. This is one of them. Split is closed and the depression engulfs. The closure of the split creates so much of depression that it engulfs you. You are not able to come out of it. The split has to close. You have to go through depression and then come out of it happy in a realistic position. But in some cases, the loss of the all good object is so depressing that you just get engulfed by the depression. This is what happens when somebody does not have the capacity to undergo the depression of the depressive position and the therapist forces the person to go into a depressive position. The way out then is mourning and affect release. Split remains open, does not close. And in some unique cases, the ecstasy engulfs. There are too many manic highs. So there has to be conscious affect moderation. And this requires a lot of cognitive, affective, and behavioral practice. And a lot of awareness. Split open to creativity. The split is open, but it is not open in a way that you are engulfed by depression or engulfed by ecstasy. It is open to creativity, and if that is the situation, art and creative working can be very good ways of leveraging the split, doing good productive things out of the split, doing good productive things out of the split. And addressing deeper issues through art therapy and creative working. The split of envy, the closure of the split will not happen because of envy. The acceptance and working through of envy is the way out. Split of revenge. The desire for revenge is so strong that one cannot give up the anger and the split. So resolving the ambivalence, making the shift from split to ambivalence, and living it out in therapy and affect release, they are the ways out. The split of greed. The greed for the all good object is so high that unless one has it completely, one cannot close the split. The moment one closes it and allows the idea of the all good object to recede, the greed comes up and reopens the split because one wants to have it. One cannot close it without having it. This calls for a lot of acceptance and working through. And the split of omnipotence. One cannot let go of omnipotence. So one cannot let go of the split because of many reasons. One reason is omnipotence. Acceptance, very deep acceptance of the loss of omnipotence. Exploration of this whole idea of omnipotence and judicious integration. And it requires a long thinking, profound thinking, acceptance and living out. This is almost like a sadhana, as we would call it in the East. So these are the classical ways of addressing various kinds of splits. Now let us look at the heat way, additional heat tools and techniques. What would we do additionally we can do in heat? The first is visualization of a person, God, a golden all good ball, or all good sun. And this visualization of an all good object is very necessary. In many cases, to internalize it, so the facilitation of closure of the split becomes facilitated. Where necessary, cognitive separation and synthesis and feeling separation and synthesis. And this can be done through idol therapy very well. One can have a physical idol and a personality around that idol created through mythological stories. And then in relation, one can practice cognitive separation and synthesis, or one can even in abstract from one's own life and events practice cognitive separation and synthesis. How to separate, how to think on extremes, and how to synthesize. Similarly, how to feel on extremes and how to feel in synthesis. You can have a free journey with resistance to internalization. That instead of fighting resistance, we just be with resistance to understand the story of resistance. Why is it there? Why is it doing what it is doing? And can we understand our resistance with empathy? And we just be with resistance as a friend in a free journey, and we try to end up in internalization. Freedom from resistance and then internalization. Dream work is very important, and dream analysis is done using multiplicity of schools, which includes Eastern schools of yoga and tantra. Artwork is a very important part of it, both responding to art and creating art. And that allows us the whole possibility of understanding and interpretation. Exhaust expression. Express oneself to the extent of exhausting oneself. That one has exhausted expressing oneself, there is nothing else left to express. It is articulation of desire to its extreme of exhausting it completely. When you exhaust completely articulation of desire, articulation of self, I would call it exhaustive self-expression. So exhaust oneself in expression. It's a very important part of it. And then work on this problem at work. So psychological work when at work. This is a very good test of if or not our work has actually gone deep enough to help in everyday transformation. Second important psychological issue is ego cohesion. Very important from a cohesion point of view. Kohut talks about three different types of self and corresponding ego cohesion or disintegration. One, the psychotic self, where disintegration is spontaneous. Second, borderline self, where disintegration is frequent but not as frequent as in spontaneous, and it requires some sort of a external challenge for it to happen or internal challenge for it to happen. It does not happen spontaneously without a stressor, external or internal. And then we have the occasional disintegration of the narcissistic self, which requires a strong challenge outside or inside for disintegration. And the classical approach is in spontaneous disintegration. In case of psychotic self, the therapy approach is holding. In case of bipolar self, approach is holding, and rare interpretation, I should say not rare, occasional, this stands corrected, occasional interpretation. And in case of narcissistic self, holding and frequent interpretation. But after a long phase of holding, and depends on the fragility of the narcissistic character. Very fragile narcissistic characters may require very prolonged holding. And how does the ego cohesion enhance itself? First, presence of the good object. The presence of the good object brings about inner harmony and coordination. The regulatory function starts functioning, and the absence of the good object creates a complete chaos inside, disintegration of the coordinator. Long-term solution is internalization of the good object, so that the physical presence of the good object externally is no longer required. If possible, creation of the good object inside to augment the presence of the good object outside, this can be done. Approaches can be spirituality, mysticism, interaction with guru, God, nature. Any good object, real or conceptual, can be engaged with, related to, and internalized. Creative visualization of ego cohesion is very important. For example, if you visualize the ego as being built of parts, many bricks come together to build an ego. So say parts, not bricks, but say parts. Parts come together, 5 parts come together to create an ego, and where they join each other on their boundary is some adhesive, the adhesive of cohesion. This is one way of visualizing ego formation. The second way of visualizing it is that there is one small ego, which a proto-ego grows in an organic whole. So there are no pieces coming together. One small organic thing growing into an organic large whole. In either of the cases, when the challenge comes, there are cracks, and the cracks result in disintegration. And this disintegration creates problems. So creative visualization of how the ego is created, how to consolidate it, how to integrate it in case it is disintegrated. That creative visualization first as a standalone practice, and then when it happens is very important. Slowly one gets into a gradual challenge practice. So one gets into situations where one is gradually challenged and one has to maintain one's ego cohesion in the face of increasingly strong challenge. And last is one feels safe in here and now in expressing oneself to the therapist and relate to him in the here and now. So safe self-expression completely and safe relating with the therapist. I forgot to mention that. These are very good tools to test out and enhance ego cohesion. So this is the classical way of going about it. Let us look at the additional things we can do in Git. Visualize process of ego creation. The parts are coming together or one is going into large. Visualize cracks happening, cracks cementing. Visualize the adhesive all over, strengthening it right in front of the chest, center of the chest, where this disintegration is felt. And one feels a consolidated thing there. One visualizes and one feels better. So visualize something in front of the chest, the center of the self. Sri Aurobindo's outer ego and Pohu's self. One way to call it is to call it a personality ego. Second element in heat will be awareness and resolve to work and reintegrate while disintegration is on. It's a mistake here. Resolve to reintegration. So the one has to be aware when the disintegration happens and then resolve to reintegrate it again. And this happens partly in visualization, partly by resolution, partly by intention. And partly it teaches you, the process teaches you what more to do, which may differ from person to person. Resolution and visualization to enhance strength. So when the crisis is not there, how do you visualize and resolve to enhance the strength so it does not occur? The disintegration does not occur when the challenge comes again. Practice, visualization practice of attack and strength. Awareness of disintegration as it is happening so we can resolve to stop it. Mantra and visualization to enhance strength. Rage release is very important. Because rage, if not released, can go and attack our own frontal part of personality and disintegrate it. So ego cohesion is enhanced when the rage is released. Idle therapy to institute a good object. Internalization of a good object is very necessary for ego cohesion. So ego cohesion depends on many factors. One of the factors is affect release. Second is practice of challenge. Third is internalization of a good object. Fourth is social backup and social support system also. The more lonely and unsupported a person is, less becomes the ego cohesion by and large. Exceptions apart, of course. Good object to enhance safety inside and outside. If we have good objects inside and good objects outside, and often this happens by relating or joining groups. Opposite of catastrophic thinking, which is catastrophic thinking, with humor and preparation for ego disintegration. This helps. This is very experiential. Just go along doing it and it will reveal its full color and flavor to you. One should consciously go into disintegration with preparation. This cannot be done the first time, but after 2-3 times, if something is repeating, it can be done. From pranic healing perspective, we have to work on the heart chakra and the root chakra to enhance ego cohesion with visualization. AUM meditation can be used for affect release to enhance ego cohesion, and gradual challenge practice is very necessary for this. It involves a lot of behavioral practice. Third important element in psychoanalysis, phenomena I should say, the problem of Oedipus. What do we do in ordinary therapy? See the sexual fantasies, look at central masturbatory fantasy. If it is not there, bring it into discussion. If necessary, ask the person to read Freud if society is very, very conservative. Then discuss it with the person that this is what is seen there. Mostly try to get it out from the person. If not, then hint it in the third person. If not, then ask it if this is the kind of problem. If not, give him reading, then discuss, then do dream analysis which may have these elements of Oedipus. Then analyze romantic and sexual behavior with factoring in this, and then explore it, do the cost and benefit analysis, road ahead choices, how the person would like to integrate this, and you work through the Oedipus. What would you do in heat in addition to the classical work? First is the root chakra clearing, sex chakra cleaning, the bottom two chakras. Energizing the sex chakra with white prana to reduce the influence of the strength of Oedipus. Lot of dream analysis using all schools of heat, including Eastern schools. Pranayama, which is based on those two chakras or the bottom three chakras. There are special pranayamas to purify the bottom three chakras. Homeopathy based on the personality of the person. Certain mantras are used for chakra cleansing. Artwork can be used to bring out those elements into discussion. Visualization of flame, cleaning up those areas, and guilt work, and often they go together. This also is one very good approach. And the whole idea of visualizing and living out with a, a dream person, either a female Swapneshwari or a male Swapna Purush. This is a very extensive practice in Tantra. This can also be used to clear up the sexual center or the heart center. So these are additional tools in the basket. There can be many more. And as I said before, the ultimate goal is to create a package, a heat package for every disorder, exhaustive heat package. Empirically tested, of course. Till that happens, the first thoughts are what we are discussing. This is like Swapneshwari or Swapna Purush is like creating a dream person and living out all fantasies with that person. And it goes under a guru's guidance, but at some point you feel you are living with that person. From traditional point of view, we can criticize this as trying to seed psychosis almost. But this is a very powerful practice in the Eastern spirituality. Fourth element, I am not good enough. Very common difficulty in psychotherapy. Patient has a pathological belief, I am not good enough. Classically, we go this way. We see if it is event based or it has developed over a period of time. Event based may be because of early life object loss. The child may have concluded wrongly, I am not good enough, therefore the object is gone. Or it may be attachment oriented, that the parents are not good enough, but the child takes it on himself that I am not good enough to maintain the attachment. Or it may be a defense to cover up anger, pain, or guilt related to somebody you are strongly attached to. Or it may be a cover for a narcissistic defeat, to cover up the narcissistic defeat with a wounded hero. A wounded hero cover to cover up the narcissistic defeat. Or a belief that such a self-reproach will bring love, admiration, support, and pardon from some mistake one has committed. So these can be various routes to I am not good enough. And of course, one route is repeatedly being told by somebody, I am not good enough. Repeated attacks of you are not good enough from significant others. Well, how do we go about? We go about with evidence on reality. That is the evidence that you are not good enough, or is it just a belief? So we try to put together the belief and reality and try to integrate them. We give a gradual challenge practice. So the person slowly builds up, I am good enough. With every small challenge overcome. We give positive reinforcement from our side, as well as ask the patient to do it, ask his family members to do it if possible. We explore the fear of abandonment and the fear of attack, which may force the person to take up the position of I am not good enough to maintain the attachment and prevent an attack. There may be a situation where this may be a tool not to display one's full talents in order to maintain attachment with some people in society or prevent an attack of envy from others in society. And finally, how to live with the belief I am good enough. Because if somebody has been with this I am not good enough for many years, it takes some time before living with being good enough. It needs support and practice, and quite some amount of support and analysis in therapy. This is how we would go about in a classical way. Now, what do we do in heat additionally? We would clean and energize solar plexus, which is the seat for domination, submission. I am good enough, I am not good enough. We would ask him to do meditation on evidence in reality, taking up any one event slowly and gradually. And this would involve a thorough understanding cognitively, affectively, and look at it from an observer status. We can look at OM to release pent up emotions. If this is a cover, I am not good enough is a cover. Look at dreams which tell you you are good enough or the kind of desires you have. Visualization of I am good enough. And fighting in visualization, I am not good enough. Using mantras to purify the center. Idol therapy. where you relate to the idols who second your feeling of I am good enough. And of course, gradual practice in the world. Hopefully involving some social work or spiritual work. So this is how we would add from heat side to I am not good enough. Last one, safety. Very important we see in psychotherapy, the patient doesn't feel safe. Safety is very important to be cultivated in therapy. I think this is the first thing we should be cultivating before going deeper. What are the classical expressions? There is a constant fear of attack. It can be the lack of feeling of safety can manifest in these ways. One, there is always a fear of attack, almost a psychotic position. There is an occasional fear of attack. There is a fear of misuse of information revealed, of opening up, or there is a fear of attack in session or after the session if you release difficult feelings towards somebody in the session. So these are some of the issues of safety which we encounter in sessions. And we deal with them differently, of course. What are the usual ways? We ask the person to go for self-expression so that the unconscious becomes conscious. It gets words, it gets discussed out, it gets expressed. We go in for self-acceptance of those parts whose non-acceptance may be releasing anxiety. We try to look at the positive of the negative and allow the person to consciously experience the socially non-admired. So the person feels safe and is also able to go into depressive position. Slowly we allow the person to feel good even in silence, to feel safe even in silence. Then we take the person to revisit difficult things which were not safe to revisit before. Support the person to accept the difficult as difficult. But the difficult is not catastrophic. Help the person more difficult feelings, sadness particularly, so that you don't feel unsafe as the sadness starts coming up to consciousness. Anger release is very important because one is afraid of one's own anger. And then if one is able to feel safe in relating to the therapist in here and now, that's a very good attainment stone of safety. That will clear the way for emotional closeness with the therapist. And relating to the therapist in here and now and having emotional closeness, they are like very important attainments of therapy. And then to have a vision of life, being free from all fears, feeling safe, and then try to live it out and solve the problems on the way. And if one does not feel safe, work on it in therapy. So this is the classical way we go about. What more would you add from heat side? One is idle therapy, to internalize a good, reliable, stable object, to feel that a good, reliable, stable object is always protecting you. So there is not only an attacker, but also a protector all around. Just as the attacker is in fantasy, the protector may be in fantasy, but the both are balanced out. And at times, over a period of time, it will be more safety than attack. Cleaning and energizing the root chakra and cleaning of the heart chakra. These are very important from pranic healing point of view. Elemental working on fear, sensitivity and positivity. Visualization and art, leveraging them for safety. To overcome attacks, to overcome catastrophizing and safe, feeling safe. Using mantras which are specific for this. Creating the pranic healing shield for this. Using homeopathy and gradual practice of taking on challenges. This is what we would add from heat side. So this is the way we would add more options to the basket of healing as we practice the heat approach to healing. As we go along, we will develop individual packages for each disorder, empirically tested out for efficacy and for easy usability. Next session, we will be dealing with applying heat in its more elemental details to bipolar personality disorder. Thank you.